everyone, it's time for English. Okay, so date and title as always, and then we will be ready to make a start. I can never get the slide to go to the next one on the first go for some reason. There we go. Sorry, Year 3. At some point I will figure that out, I promise. Okay, so for today's lesson, you're going to need the 3 things that I asked you to collect yesterday. So the photo of a special occasion, a treasured object, and one of your favourite books. If you could go and collect them, please, and just put them to one side because you will need them for later on in the lesson. So pause the video here to give yourself time to go and get them, or well done if you already remembered and you had them with you. Okay. So, a quick recap before we start. Let's get our brains warmed up and into English mode. So, I've got 3 conjunctions here: while, when, and as. They are all subordinating conjunctions, which means that you can use them in the middle of a sentence, and you can also use them at the beginning of a sentence as well. And what I would like you to do is I would like you to write a sentence using each of these 3 conjunctions. But for each sentence, I would like you to write it 2 different ways. So I would like you to write the same sentence with the conjunction in the middle of the sentence. And then I would like you to write the same sentence, but moving the conjunction to the start of the sentence instead. So I've done an example for you here. So I've used the conjunction while, and I've got, I'm not allowed to watch TV while I eat my dinner. Now, what you've got here is the conjunction in the middle, and then this whole bit here, while I eat my dinner, this is the subordinate clause. Okay, this is the bit that doesn't make sense on its own. If I took that bit out and just had while I eat my dinner, that doesn't make sense on its own. I need to add something to it. While I eat my dinner, what? Or I need something before it for it to make sense. This bit here, this beginning bit here, I am not allowed to watch TV. This is the bit that is the main clause. That does make sense by itself. I'm not allowed to watch TV, full stop. I could put a full stop at the end of that, and that would be a perfectly fine sentence on its own. While I eat my dinner, that's not a full sentence, that's not a main clause, that's a subordinate clause. That's a bit of a sentence that has to be added to a main clause for it to make sense, okay? So what you can then do with a subordinate clause is you can then move that to the start of the sentence instead. So it gives you the option to switch your sentences around a bit. And you can see I've still got the same 2 bits of my sentence. I've still got the main clause and the subordinate clause. Here is my subordinate clause, while I eat my dinner. And here's my subordinating conjunction, while. And here is my main clause. I am not allowed to watch TV. I've still got those 2 clauses together. I've just switched them around the other way, okay? So your subordinating conjunction is always the first word of the subordinate clause, whether that clause is at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence, okay? And what I think I've actually covered up here is the comma here, okay? Hopefully you can still see that comma. While I eat my dinner, comma, I am not allowed to watch TV. Now, the important thing is that where you have a main clause and a subordinate clause, you can't have them next to each other without anything in the middle of them. So I couldn't have, I'm not allowed to watch TV, I eat my dinner. That doesn't make sense. So I have to have something in the middle of them. Here, I've got the conjunction in the middle of them. That separates the two clauses. So that's great. That's fine. But here, while I eat my dinner, I'm not allowed to watch TV. I haven't got anything at the moment that separates those two clauses out. So that's why you have to have your comma, okay? And the comma always comes at the end of the subordinate clause. So if you can pick out which bit's the main clause, which bit's the subordinate clause, you will know where the comma should go, okay? So I would like you to now have a go at this. For each of these three conjunctions, think of a sentence using the conjunction and then write the sentence with the conjunction in the middle of the sentence, and then write the exact same sentence but move the conjunction and the subordinate clause to the beginning of the sentence. Okay, have a go at doing that. If what I've just said doesn't really make any sense to you at all, then please don't worry, because it is a complicated thing and it is something that we will always go back over. This is probably one of the most important bits of year 3 writing, and every English unit that we do and every piece of writing, we revisit it, we go over it. So if you haven't quite got it now, please don't panic. Just have a play around with using the conjunctions, because the more practice you have, the better you will become at it. And at one point it will just click and you will think, now I know what Mrs. Jones is going on about all the time. So just have a play around, have a go, upload your sentences to Seesaw, because if you're not along the right lines, we can give you feedback on that and help you with it, okay? So pause the video here to have a go at doing that recap activity now. Off you go. Okay, so back to our poetry unit, and we're now just going to be thinking about the poem The Magic Box. Okay, so the other poem by Michael Rosen we're not going to be thinking about now. That was just yesterday's lesson. We're now thinking about the Magic Box poem by Kit Wright. And first activity is a visualization activity, okay? Now, visualizing is the picture that you make in your mind while you're reading. So whenever you're reading anything, you should be picturing what you are reading in your mind. You should be trying to create that image in your mind of the words that you're reading. And that's why when we read something really good and it's got loads of description in it, it helps us to create a better picture, a clearer picture. And sometimes if you've ever read a book that has then been turned into a film, you might sometimes watch the film and think, that's not how I pictured it in my mind when I read the book. And that's the great thing about books, is that sometimes there's loads and loads of description, so it tells you exactly how something looks and you can picture that in your mind. But other times it leaves things up to our imagination and we can picture them in a certain way, and somebody else who reads the book might picture it in their mind in a different way. Visualization for us as teachers helps us to know whether you are understanding what you're reading, because you can show us what picture you're creating in your mind, and if it's the right picture for what the words are saying, then we know, great, you're understanding what you're reading, you know all of the vocabulary. So it's a really good way for us to see what you're able to understand, when usually we wouldn't have a clue what pictures are going on in your mind, but when you draw them out for us, it helps us to see. So I am going to read aloud the first 2 verses of the poem The Magic Box, and as I am reading, I would like you to draw a picture showing each of the things that are going into the magic box. Now I'm going to read slowly to give you time to draw, but remember, it's a video, so you can pause it to give yourself as much time as you need. Okay, and that's why doing activities like this is actually better this way than in class, because if I was doing it in class, I might move on too quickly and you might be going, I haven't finished my picture, and I'll be saying, I'm really sorry, but we've got to move on. But with a video like this, it means that you can pause it and you can take as much time as you need. Okay, so pencils at the ready, exercise book at the ready, because you're going to draw me a nice little picture for each of the things that is going in the box. Are we ready? Okay, The Magic Box by Kit Wright. I will put in the box the swish of a silk sari on a summer night. Fire from the nostrils of a Chinese dragon. The tip of a tongue touching a tooth. I will put in the box a snowman with a rumbling belly. A sip of the bluest water from Lake Lucerne. A leaping spark from an electric fish. Okay. So I'm looking forward to seeing your pictures that go with each of those lines on Seesaw. So we're now going to have a look at the structure of the poem, The Magic Box, because over the next two lessons, today's lesson and tomorrow's lesson, you're actually going to be writing your own version of the Magic Box poem. You're going to create your own magic box and decide which things you will put inside your box. So to help us do that, don't panic, because we're going to go through it step by step together. So to help us to do that, we need to look at the poem in a bit more detail and think about how the poet has created the poem. So it has been broken down into three sections, and the three sections are in three different colours to help you see. So you've got the first four verses, 1, 2, 3, 4, the ones in red. And the first four verses is just a list of things that the author would put inside his magical box, okay? And it's a collection of memories that he's got, things that make him happy. He's even chosen some impossible things that you wouldn't actually be able to keep inside a box, like a snowman. You wouldn't be able to put a snowman inside a box, it would melt. And a snowman with a rumbling belly. Well, a snowman isn't alive, is it? So it wouldn't really have a rumbling belly. So he's kind of played around a bit there and tried to think of some really interesting different things. Also down here, you've got a fifth season. Well, there isn't a fifth season, is there? We've got autumn, spring, summer, winter. We've got 4 seasons. There isn't a fifth season, but he said he would put a fifth season in his box. He said he would put a black sun in his box. That doesn't exist, does it? So he's really tried to play around with different things that he would put. He's used his imagination. He's chosen some sounds that he would put in his box. The last joke of an ancient uncle. You can't actually capture someone's joke and put it in the box. But that's what makes this poem so great, is that he's used his imagination. He's gone for really different things. And each verse of the poem has got the same structure. So you start with the repetition. I will put in the box. I will put in the box. I will put into the box. I will put into the box. So you've got that at the beginning. You then have got 1, 2, 3 things. So you've got the same structure for each verse. I will put in the box, 1, 2, 3. I will put in the box, 1, 2, 3. I will put into the box, 1, 2, 3. I will put into the box, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and each thing is on a new line. So each thing that he's decided to put in the box goes on a new line. Now we come down to this bit here in blue. Now this is where the author talks about what his magic box is made out of, and he's used the words, my box is fashioned from. And again, he's just used his imagination and gone with crazy things, like his box is made from ice and gold and steel. It's got stars on the lid and secrets in the corner. Well, it wouldn't actually be physically possible to put secrets in the corner because secrets isn't an object that you could hold, but it's his box. He's gone for it. Its hinges are the toe joints of dinosaurs. So again, he's playing around with what his box is made of. And finally, the last verse of his poem is what the author would do with his box. He's going to surf in his box on the great high rolling breakers of the wild Atlantic. So on those waves of the wild Atlantic, he's using his box as a surfboard. Then he's going to wash ashore up on a yellow beach, the colour of the sun. Okay, so some different things that the poet has used to make his poem really interesting for the reader. The first one is something called alliteration. Can you practice saying that back with me? Alliteration. Your turn. Good. Alliteration. Alliteration. Okay. An alliteration is where you have the same sound or letter at the beginning of a word. So in each sentence, you've got words that start with the same sound or letter. So for example, the swish of a silk sari on a summer night. I've forgotten to highlight that one in red. Whoopsie. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 S's there, 4 words that begin with the letter S in that sentence together, and it creates that really lovely flow, the swish of a silk sari on a summer night. Have a go at saying that to yourself. It's almost a bit like a tongue twister, and that is a device that poets use a lot in their poems, where they have the first letter or sound of the word the same in a lot of the words. And the words don't have to be right next to each other, but they're all in the same sentence. This one here, fire from the nostrils of a Chinese dragon. You've got those 2 F's there next to each other. And this one here has got the letters T, the tip of a tongue touching a tooth. You've got those 4 T's in there, which is a really good example of alliteration. You've got the same letters at the beginning of words. Verse 2, the poet has used prepositions. Now, we looked at prepositions last week. They are, well, I wonder, can you remember what type of words prepositions are? What do they tell us? They tell us where something is. So prepositions give more information by describing where something is. So words like with, from, and they are the only 2 that this poet has decided to use. But he's added more information. He hasn't just said, I will put in the box a snowman. He said a snowman with a rumbling belly. He's used that preposition to add more information. Verse 3, he's used numbers. So he said 3 violet wishes spoken in Gujarati, the last joke of an ancient uncle, and the first smile of a baby. So he's really thought carefully about that verse and has given that verse a theme of numbers. And verse 4, well, these are all those impossible things that don't actually exist that he's made up. So impossible things like a 5th season or a black sun, and then he's gone for irregular things that you don't see that often, and he's mixed up. So you've got a cowboy that's on a broomstick and a witch that's on a white horse. Well, usually that would be the other way around. So he's gone for things that are a bit muddled up to make his poem a bit more interesting. Okay, so language devices used, just a quick summary. Alliteration, that's words that start with the same letter. The swish of a silk sari or fire from. Prepositions and numbers. And you're going to have a go at using these 3 things when you write your own poems today. You're going to write 1 verse. So, you're going to create your own magic box poem, as I've said. You're going to do this by thinking of things that make you happy or things that relate to your identity, things that are personal to you, memories that you've got. And that's why I asked you to gather the 3 things: the photograph, the treasured object, and your favourite book, because these are going to help you and give you inspiration of things to put inside your magic box. So I'm going to take you through step by step of how to write your first verse of your poem. And you're only going to write 1 verse in today's lesson. And I'm going to show you how I did that first of all. So this here is my photograph of a special occasion. This is a special occasion to me because it was a holiday that I went on when we were allowed to go on holiday, and it was the last holiday I went on before all of this happened. So it's special in my mind. I think about it all the time. So I'd like you to now get your photo of your special occasion and just have it in front of you, so that as I'm talking about my photo and doing the activities, you can be thinking about things that relate to your photo that you've got. So I started by creating a mind map of things that are related to this photograph and my memories that I've got of this event. So this day that I was on the beach on holiday, having a really good day, one of the best days. And I thought back to that, and I thought back to all of the things that are related to that occasion. And I thought of sand castles. We were building some sand castles. Sand, there's obviously sand on the beach. Family, I was with my family. Sandy toes, I was walking through the beach, and you know when you walk on the sand and your toes just glide through the sand. And then obviously you've got the sea, you've got the ocean, you've got waves. So those were just words, things that just came to my mind when I thought about my photo. Okay, things that are in the photo, like sand and the sea. There are some things that aren't in the photo, like family and sand castles, but they're my memories of things that did happen that day. So I'd like you to just take a minute to look at your photo of your special occasion and create a mind map similar to my one there, of just words and things that come to mind of that special occasion. It might be things you can see in the photo, or it might just be your memories. So pause the video and take a bit of time to do that yourselves now for your photo. Off you go. Okay. So now, using your photo, you're going to write the first verse of your poem, and it must follow this structure. So you must have at the start, I will put in the box, and then you're going to come up with 3 things that you're going to put in the box. Okay, each thing will be on a new line. Don't start yet though, because I'm going to talk you through my ones, and then I'm going to give you time. You'll have time to do yours. Okay, so as you will see in the corner down here in the yellow box, I've got the 3 things that the poet used in his poem that we're going to try and use in our poems today. So alliteration, words that start with the same letter. Prepositions, words that give us a bit more information and add a bit more detail. And maybe numbers. We might try and use some numbers in there somewhere like the poet does. Okay, so the first thing I've decided to go into my box is a sandcastle. Now, at the moment, this is just a simple noun phrase. It's a bit boring. There's no description. There's nothing else going on there. It's just a sandcastle. So I'm not going to leave that as it is. That's just my starting point. That's just my first idea. I'm now going to add in an adjective, a describing word, to give more description about the sandcastle. So I've gone for the word sculpted. The reason I went for the word sculpted is because I wanted to choose a word that began with the letter S. And the reason I wanted to do that, well, I wonder if you can think, why do you think I wanted a letter S? Because I wanted to use alliteration. Okay, alliteration is where they start with the same letter. So I wanted to choose an adjective that started with the same letter so that I can use that device. So I've gone for a sculpted sandcastle. I could have said soft sandcastle, or I could have said shaped, but I think the word sculpted creates a stronger image. It makes you think of a really elaborate sandcastle, which is the image that I'm going for. Okay, I'm not happy with that yet, because now I want to say more about the sandcastle. So now I'm going to include a preposition. I've included the preposition inside, and I'm giving more detail to describe where the sandcastle is. So the sandcastle is inside a sheltered cove. And the reason I've chosen that word sheltered, I wonder if you can see what's special about that word sheltered. It begins with an S. It's got that S sound. Well, it's actually got the sh sound, but it's from the same kind of family. So a sculpted sandcastle inside a sheltered cove. So I'm finally happy with that line now, because I've added some description, some adjectives, I've used alliteration, and I've used a preposition. So I'm going to leave that as my first line. Okay. Now my next line, my next thing that I'm going to put in the box is a picnic blanket. You couldn't see that in the photo, but we actually had a picnic on the beach that day, okay? So I'm going to put a picnic blanket inside my box, because that's a happy memory that I've got of having a picnic on the beach with my family. So I've written a picnic blanket. Now again, you will remember that the last line that we wrote, we started with a very simple noun phrase of just a sandcastle. You can see how that has now developed into a much better line of my poem. Now this is going to go the same way. At the moment, we've just got a picnic blanket. That's a very simple noun phrase. It's got no adjectives, no description, nothing there going on. So I'm going to add in an adjective first of all to describe the picnic blanket, and I've gone for the word soft. I haven't used alliteration. I think I've already used alliteration in my first line here about the sandcastle, so I don't think I really need to use that again in my second line. So I've just chosen the adjective soft, so a soft picnic blanket. And I'm going to add in a preposition again to this line. I'm going to use the preposition with, and I'm going to say a soft picnic blanket covered with happy family faces. Now, that just so happens that family faces actually is alliteration, because they're two words that start with the same sound. I didn't really intend for that to happen, but it's fine if you want to go for alliteration in every line. But the thing I was focusing on was this preposition here with, because it gives more detail about the picnic blanket. So a soft picnic blanket covered with happy family faces. And I'm happy with that now. That's been transformed. I'm happy with that second line. Okay, third thing that's going in my box. The third thing that's going in my box is it's going to be a sound. It's not an object, okay? The first two things are actually objects that I probably could put in a box. It would be hard to put a sandcastle in a box, but I could if I tried. And I could put a picnic blanket in a box. So the third thing, I'm going to go for something that is a sound. It's not something that is possible to actually pick up and put in a box. But that's going to make my poem a bit more interesting. So I've gone for the sound of a wave. And again, very simple noun phrase that I'm starting with, the sound of a wave. So I've chosen to add in the soothing sound of a wave. So I've gone for an adjective to describe the sound, and I've also gone for another S word so that we've got alliteration there, soothing sound. And I now want to add some more description to describe what the wave is doing. So I've gone for the soothing sound of a wave gently stroking the sand. And the reason I've chosen the verb stroking is because it's another word that begins with an S, so it adds to my alliteration of the sentence. The soothing sound of a wave gently stroking the sand. Another S there. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. So let's compare, because I didn't just sit there and go, okay, I'm going to put in my box a sandcastle, a picnic blanket, the sound of a wave. Okay, those are the three things that I chose, but I actually took the time to think about, well, how can I make that more interesting for my reader? How can I use alliteration? How can I use adjectives? How can I use prepositions to add more detail? So if you see this very boring version here in the orange box, I will put in the box a sandcastle, a picnic blanket, the sound of a wave, versus I will put in the box a sculpted sandcastle inside a sheltered cove, a soft picnic blanket covered with happy family faces, the soothing sound of a wave gently stroking the sand. Okay, you can see that the verse that I've come up with in the green box is so much better. Okay, so it's now your turn. Using your photograph of your special occasion and your mind map that you've already created, you're now going to choose 3 things to go inside your box. It could be an actual object that you can actually pick up, like a picnic blanket. It could be the sound of something. It could be a feeling. It could be something that is impossible, that doesn't actually exist, okay? But remember to try to use these 3 things in the yellow box here: alliteration, prepositions. I didn't actually use numbers. That's up to you, but remember, think about those adjectives, those describing words. So off you go, pause the video here and have a go at writing your first verse of your poem. Okay, now that you've had a go at doing that, I want you to just take some time to perform your first verse out loud. And poetry is designed to be read out loud. So this will help you to hear how your poem actually sounds. And if you've used alliteration really well, you will hear it as you're performing it, okay? You might then want to make some changes to your poem after you've had a chance to perform it out loud, because once you've heard it out loud, you might think, oh, that doesn't actually sound that good. I'm going to change that and add that in there. So think about the tone of your voice and using expression, your facial expressions, and the volume of your voice as well. And if you could, you can record yourself performing them and upload that to Seesaw as well, so that we can have a listen. That would be great. Okay, well done today, everyone. Really looking forward to seeing the first verses of your poems on Seesaw. Keep up the hard work.